You ever feel like your mind's playing tricks on you? Like, you walk into a room and swear you left the light off, but it's on. Or you're certain your keys were in your bag, but now they're gone. And the worst part is when it keeps happening over and over until the doubt starts creeping in. You start asking yourself, am I just forgetful? Or am I losing it? I moved into the apartment a little over 2 months ago. It was small, older, kind of had that faint, something died here in the 90s smell. But rent was cheap and I was in a rush. My last lease ended suddenly. Long story, and I needed a place fast. That's how I ended up with Greg. Found his post on some roommate forum. His ad was normal enough. Chill guy, clean, quiet, works nights, looking for someone low-key. That checked my boxes. We met once at a coffee shop and he seemed all right. Soft-spoken. Kept eye contact maybe a little too long. But I figured he was just awkward. I should have trusted my gut. First, it was just small stuff. I'd leave my phone charger on the kitchen counter and come back an hour later, and it'd be on the living room table. Or my shoes would be turned around the wrong way at the front door. Not a big deal, right? I even joked about it to Greg once. Said maybe the place was haunted. He just smiled, kind of lopsided, and said I must be forgetful. Didn't think much of it. Not yet. Then came the keys. I've never lost a set of keys in my life. I'm one of those people who always keeps them clipped to the same loop on my bag. But one day, I come home from work, dig through my stuff, and they're just gone. Greg was home, sitting on the couch. I asked him if he'd seen them, half laughing it off. He gave me this blank look, then smiled, said maybe I left them at work. I ended up finding them the next morning, inside the fridge. Inside the fridge. Right next to the orange juice, and that's when the jokes stopped being funny. Things escalated fast after that. The lights would turn on in rooms I hadn't been in. My alarm would go off an hour earlier than I set it. Food would go missing, specific things like the top slice of bread from a loaf. The TV would be playing when I got home even though I swear I turned it off. Every time I brought it up, Greg had the same reaction. Blank, amused, slightly condescending, like I was being dramatic. One night, I asked him directly if he was messing with me. He just tilted his head a little and said something like, "Why would I do that?" But there was this tiny flicker behind his eyes, like he enjoyed me asking. That night, I didn't sleep, because I was finally willing to consider the possibility that Greg wasn't just weird. He was dangerous. I bought a set of mini cameras online. Nothing expensive, just small, motion-activated ones. I hid one in the hallway, one in the kitchen, and one in the living room, angled to catch the front door and most of the common area. I didn't tell Greg, didn't even breathe a word. I waited. 3 nights later, I got my answer. I came home from work and found my bedroom door cracked open. I never leave it like that. My charger was gone again, so I checked the camera feed. Started with the hallway. Around 2 a.m. the night before, there he was, Greg, walking barefoot down the hall. He stopped at my door, glanced around, then slowly turned the knob, slipped inside. He stayed in there for 6 minutes. When he came out, he had something in his hand. Went to the kitchen, put it in the fridge. My mouth went dry. I switched to the kitchen footage. There he was again, opening the bread bag, taking just the top slice and eating it with this eerie, calm look on his face. He adjusted the volume on the TV, opened the hallway closet, flipped a light switch on and off just once. He was playing with me, like it was a game. I watched all the footage, couldn't stop. There were at least 4 different nights where he crept into my room while I was asleep. Sometimes he moved stuff, my watch, my phone. One time he just stood there, at the foot of the bed, for 5 minutes, just stood there and watched me sleep. I started looking into him. It wasn't hard, his full name was on the lease. Found a few old social media accounts, mostly dead, but I found something else. A forum post, from 2 years ago, different city, different name on the lease, but same apartment layout, same roommate story. Someone had been losing things, forgetting alarm times, feeling paranoid. The post ended abruptly. There were a few comments. One of them said the original poster stopped responding, moved out apparently, or vanished. I didn't confront Greg. I didn't sleep. I just waited until I knew he was out, packed everything I could carry in 2 bags, walked out, and never went back. The landlord wasn't surprised when I ended the lease, just asked if the quiet one had started doing weird stuff again. I didn't answer, couldn't. I still have the footage, still watch it sometimes late at night, just to remind myself I'm not crazy, that it really happened, and that people like Greg, they don't want to kill you, not right away. They want to watch you fall apart first, and they'll do it with a smile. You ever get that feeling like someone's watching you? Not the usual, I'm walking home alone and it's dark kind of feeling. I mean, when you're in your own space, your room, your bathroom, somewhere that's supposed to be private, and something just feels off. Like the air shifts and you suddenly become aware of yourself in a way that doesn't feel normal. That feeling, it followed me for weeks after I moved into that apartment. I found it through a housing board at my college. The rent was ridiculously cheap for the location. Cute neighborhood, old building with actual character. The only catch was that the landlord lived on the premises. Not downstairs, not in the basement, in the apartment. He had the master bedroom and I got the smaller one across the hall. Shared kitchen, shared bathroom. The listing called it a cozy arrangement. And at first it seemed fine. His name was Elliot. Looked like he was in his early 30s, maybe younger. Polite, smiled a lot. Wore slippers in the house and played classical music when he cooked. Didn't seem pushy or invasive. Asked the usual roommate stuff during our first chat, what time I liked to shower, if I was a night owl or morning person, allergies, all that. Looking back, I realized how specific some of his questions were. Like, do you sleep with your door locked? Or, do you prefer to change in your room or the bathroom? He'd asked it all casually, like it was just part of getting to know someone new. But I answered, because why wouldn't I? I moved in the next week. The weirdness started small. Elliot always knew when I was home. That doesn't sound like much, but it was uncanny. Like, I'd take my shoes off silently at the door, creep past his room, and not 5 seconds later, he'd pop into the hallway like, "Oh hey, didn't hear you come in." But he always did. Same with when I left. Once, I came home from class early and found him in the kitchen, pouring tea, and he said something like, "You're back early today. Everything okay?" I hadn't told him my schedule, not in detail. I brushed it off as him just being observant. But the more it happened, the more it started to feel like I was being tracked. Sometimes I'd find things slightly moved in my room, like I'd leave a pair of socks on the floor and come back to find them draped over the edge of my laundry basket. Not folded, not put away, just moved. One time I could have sworn my phone had been turned slightly on my desk. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then came the closet. I was cleaning one Sunday, just going all out with music, vacuuming, dusting, the whole thing. I decided to finally organize the top shelf of my closet. I dragged over a chair, climbed up, and started moving things around. There was a weird draft coming from the ceiling, like cold air slipping through a vent. I pushed on one of the ceiling tiles and it shifted upward, just enough to let a little dust fall. So naturally, I pushed it again. The tile lifted and then slid back. And that's when I saw it, a small, black circle. At first, I thought it was a spider or a pipe cap, but when I reached up and touched it, I felt the cool, round edge of a lens. It was a camera, right above the shelf, pointed directly into the center of my room. I froze. I didn't say anything. I didn't even breathe, just lowered the tile, stepped down from the chair, and stared at the wall like it would explain everything. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't say a word. I locked my door, stuffed a towel under it, turned off the lights, and cried myself sick. The next morning, I skipped class and tore my room apart. I found 2 more, one tucked into the corner of the bathroom mirror, disguised as one of those little screw covers, and another inside a vent in my closet floor, both aimed at me, one where I changed, one where I showered. My stomach was in knots. Every muscle in my body felt tense, like I was being watched even then, because I probably was. I packed a bag and left, went to a friend's dorm and told her everything. She didn't say much, just handed me her phone and said to call the police. When they came, I gave them the exact addresses of the cameras, the footage from my own phone showing the lenses, and even Elliot's creepy little interview questions he'd asked me when I moved in. They said this wasn't the first time. Apparently, 2 years ago, another girl had filed a similar report, but she didn't have evidence and Elliot claimed she was unstable. Nothing ever came of it. She moved out and didn't press charges. This time, they had enough. They arrested him the same week. And then they found everything. Hard drives, cloud backups, even usernames on dark forums where he'd been streaming my life, to subscribers, under a fake name, dozens of videos, hundreds of screenshots. He'd been recording me since the day I moved in. Not just me, 3 other girls before me. All college students, all around my age, all with the same story. Cheap rent, charming smile, quiet guy who knew too much. Only difference was, caught him. I still have nightmares sometimes. Dreams where I'm in a room I think is private, and suddenly I realize someone's watching me from the walls, from the vents, from the ceiling. I don't stay in apartments anymore, only dorms, always shared bathrooms, always open doors. But even then, sometimes I still feel it. That feeling that creeps into your skin like eyes pressing against the back of your neck. You don't forget it, not when it was real. If you're drawn to tales like these, consider subscribing to Spectral for more chilling entries waiting to be uncovered. And if you have your own haunting story that you'd like featured in an upcoming compilation, we'd love to hear it. Just email us at spectralentries@gmail.com. Now, let's get back to the video. You ever meet someone new and feel like you've known them forever? Not in the cute soulmate kind of way. I'm talking about the unsettling kind. The kind where they know just a little too much about you. Like they already know how you take your coffee or the name of your childhood pet. And you're left smiling awkwardly, trying to remember if you ever told them. That was Nate, my new roommate. I moved into the apartment that fall. It was in an older building near the edge of the city. Still close enough to downtown, but far enough that rent didn't make my eyes bleed. It had good bones. Hardwood floors, wide windows, even a little balcony with just enough space for one folding chair and a dying succulent. I'd found the listing through a community housing forum. The ad said the current tenant was looking for a quiet, responsible roommate to split rent. Must be clean, respectful, and chill. Sounded ideal. We did a quick video call. He seemed normal, average, nice voice, friendly. He told me he worked in tech, freelanced mostly, and kept to himself. Said he liked cooking, hated loud music, and didn't throw parties. Perfect. When I moved in, he helped carry my boxes up the stairs. Said I didn't look like I weighed more than a paper towel roll. I laughed. It was an awkward compliment, but harmless, I thought. The first few days were quiet. He was considerate, always knocking before entering a shared space, cleaning up after himself, even leaving post-it notes that said things like "finished the coffee," "sorry," or "watered your plant." Looked thirsty. I appreciated it. First. Then little things started to feel off. It was hard to explain at first. Just this feeling, like I was never really alone. I'd walk into the kitchen and the stove light would already be on, like someone had just left. My phone would buzz with Instagram notifications right after I posted, and it was always him liking them instantly. Even photos from years ago. Once I left my keys on the counter before work and came back to find them placed neatly on my desk chair. I hadn't told him I'd lost them. I hadn't even realized they were gone until I saw them sitting there. I chalked it up to him being observant. Some people are just like that, right? Still, that familiar feeling lingered, like I knew him from somewhere. A few weeks in, we were having dinner together, something he suggested doing once a week. He made pasta, I brought wine. Casual, chill. He asked how my day had gone. I mentioned I ran into someone from high school. He tilted his head, thoughtful, and said something like, "Is that the girl with the pink streak in her hair? You mentioned her once in a post, right?" I didn't remember ever mentioning her online. Certainly not what she looked like in high school. But I laughed it off. Again, because what else do you do when someone says something weird but smiles like it's totally normal? The moment everything changed came on a random Tuesday night. He wasn't home, said he was going to a friend's for drinks. I had the apartment to myself and decided to clean out the hallway closet. It had become a junk pile, umbrellas, broken vacuums, old shoes. While I was digging through, I accidentally knocked over one of his boxes on the top shelf. It split open when it hit the floor. I stared at the contents, heart sinking. Photos, dozens of them, of me. Some were zoomed in, some were wide shots, all taken from a distance. None of them I recognized. I was in them, laughing with friends, sitting at cafes, walking home with headphones in, even one of me inside my old apartment, standing by the window. My breath caught in my throat. I picked up one photo and turned it over. There was a date scribbled on the back. 2 years ago. I sat there for what felt like hours, flipping through each one. Every outfit, every hairstyle. I realized he'd been following me for years, long before I moved into this apartment, long before I met him, or thought I met him. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures of the box. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if I should call the police or run or what. I didn't even hear the door until it closed behind me. He was back. I froze. He called my name casually, like he always did when he came home. Asked if I wanted takeout. He sounded so normal, so him. I didn't answer. Instead, I slid the closet door shut, crept down the hall, and locked myself in my room. I texted my sister, told her to call the cops, told her everything. Minutes later, he knocked on my door, said he could hear me moving around, asked if everything was okay. I didn't respond. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You were supposed to find those later, not like this." That's when I knew it wasn't a mistake. The police came fast. My sister must have sent them into overdrive. They arrested him right there in the hallway. The investigation found more than I ever wanted to know. He'd been following my socials for years under fake accounts, saving photos, compiling notes, tracking my habits. When he found out my old apartment was going up for rent, he applied for it before it even hit the market. Used a friend's name, got in first. Then he listed his own ad looking for a roommate, tailored to everything I'd ever posted online about what I wanted in a living space. He made himself into the perfect match, and I fell for it. Every roommate dinner, every polite comment, every time he just happened to get my coffee order right or ask about something I hadn't mentioned in months. He already knew me. He'd been practicing for years. I don't share anything online anymore. Not my coffee, not my plants, not my face, not even my voice. People think oversharing is harmless, that it's just part of being connected. But I learned something I'll never forget. Someone out there might be watching, and they're not watching who you are. They're watching who they want you to be, and they'll do anything to get close.